Hi guys, welcome to Sanctuary TV. Today I wanted to start a three-part series with you on the topic of fear. I wanted to share this particular topic with you because it is something that has really affected my life, fear that is, and it's something that God has really been dealing with me over the last 3-4 years and helping to set me free. So I know that fear is something that a lot of people face in their day-to-day lives, in their walk with God, and I wanted to share with you what I've been learning over the last few years about fear. So this is part one, and the series is called What Are You Afraid Of? And this is part one. We're going to be looking at understanding what fear is. 2 Timothy 1 verse 7 says, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." So what is fear? Well, I went to the dictionary and I'm going to read from my notes what the dictionary said fear was. It is to be afraid of, or to expect or worry about, or to be afraid or worried. Not a great explanation really, but fear is a very powerful emotion. And it's that sense, there are lots of different words in the Bible for fear, which we'll look at in a moment. But it's that emotion that often grips you, that prevents you often from doing things, from moving. It leaves you in a state of worry. As I said, sometimes in a state of being unable to function. And it can really cripple your life if you're living life in fear. In the Bible, there are actually lots of different words that the Bible uses for fear. There isn't one word that's used throughout the Bible for fear, and we're going to just quickly look at each of those and understand a little bit more about what the different types of fear are. The first word for fear is ye'or. This one speaks of respect or awe. We find this word ye'or in Proverbs 8 verse 13, which says, "The fear of the Lord is to hate evil, pride and arrogance, and the evil way, and the perverse mouth I hate." So here this word fear means respect and awe, and it's in this sentence as the fear of the Lord. This is actually a type of fear that we should pursue. And this word for fear is scattered all the way through Proverbs. I'll put in the description box below some of the other places where this word fear, in terms of respect and awe, is actually used. And it's always linked to having a fear of the Lord. And when people hear about the fear of the Lord, they often misunderstand. They think it's about being petrified of God. But actually, it's about having a healthy respect for him, acknowledging who he is, and being in awe of his greatness. It's sort of like when you talk about maybe the royal family or a celebrity, a lot of people have this type of fear, I'd say, for those sort of big names, this sense of awe and respect. And therefore the way that they are around them, the way that they speak to them is slightly different than how they'd speak to somebody else. And the scriptures that I'm going to put in the description blocks below actually talk about the importance of having this fear, the benefits of having this fear. There is so much that comes when we develop the fear of the Lord in our lives. And it's essential in our walk with God to help to keep us actually on the correct path, to have this healthy respect and sense of awe for him. So this is a fear to pursue. The second word that we see in the Bible for fear is pakad. This means fear of evil. It's a sense of dread. And we find this in Proverbs 1 verse 33. In Proverbs 1:33 it says, "But whoever listens to me will dwell safely and will be secure without fear of evil." In this scripture, the word fear, pakad, is talking about dread. It is actually a fear that protects us. If you think about when you're raising a child, there are certain things that you want your child to be afraid of. You want your child to be afraid of running out into the road. You want your child to be afraid of putting his or her hands on hot things. And you develop this sense of dread, this sense of recognizing what is not good for us. And so as a result of that, actually avoiding it. And this is the type of fear that this word is talking about. It's talking about that healthy sense of dread about evil. It's that healthy sense of recognizing what's dangerous, or the things that we shouldn't have in our life, the things that can hinder our walk with God, the things that can destroy us. It's having a healthy fear of those things. So I shared those two words with you because often when we think about fear, we think only about the emotion that holds us back. But in the Bible, they talk about two types of fear that we should actually pursue. Ye'or, which is a respect and an awe, and that's particularly attached to the Lord. And then also pakad, which is a sense of dread, and that type of fear that protects us, that causes us to avoid getting ourselves into dangerous situations. The third word for fear is ka'ador. This fear I know personally very well, and it is the fear of man. We find this particularly referred to once again in the dear book of Proverbs, and we find it in Proverbs 29, verse 25. Proverbs 29, verse 25 says, "The fear of man brings a sneer, but whoever trusts in the Lord shall be safe." A sneer. What's a sneer? A sneer is a trap. It's something that actually is used to trap animals. And if you see the picture of a sneer, and I'll put a picture in here in the video, it has these big, gigantic teeth that can catch the legs of an animal. And once you're trapped in a snare, there is no getting out. The idea is to trap you. And so it's interesting, this scripture describes the fear of man as actually being a snare. This fear can completely debilitate you. It immobilizes us. It prevents us from pursuing the things of God and enjoying the things of God. This can range from worshipping freely in church, maybe feeling a bit strange about, oh, I don't want to lift my hands, or I don't want to respond to worship the way that I want to because what will the person next to me be thinking, to obeying God's instructions. You know, I always think about Noah, and Noah was told to build an ark. And at the time, it had never rained on planet Earth. And he was there building this ark for several years, telling everyone it's going to rain. Could you imagine the amount of ridicule he would have got? And it probably was quite tempting to disobey God's instructions. The fear of man would have stopped a lot of us from actually doing what God had told Noah to do. The fear of man would have caused us to think, what will people think? I don't want people laughing at me. In fact, I want to fit in. I don't want to be the oddball that's building some big, massive boat in the middle of on dry land and there's never been rain. I don't want to be that person. So the fear of man, ka'ador, this fear, can actually really, really hold us back. And I think for a lot of people, this is a fear that really hinders us. In a world where we're constantly being bombarded with information about how we should be and what we should do, there's a lot of pressure to fit in. And we often say this for teenagers, and that's very true, but it's for adults too. We are really encouraged to conform. And so the fear of man can really trap us from doing the things that we're meant to be doing. And when it's really strong, it can completely immobilize us and mean that we're not able to do what it is that we actually need to do or even want to do. And this is actually misplaced fear because we're spending more time worrying about what people think rather than what God thinks. The Bible clearly points out to us that we shouldn't be worrying our minds about what people think, but actually be more worried about pleasing God, because ultimately that's who we're answerable to. And the fourth and final type of fear is delia. And this is found in the scripture that I first read at the start of this video, 2 Timothy 1, verse 6, which says that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of love and of power and of a sound mind. This fear talks about timidity. It talks about being faithless or fearful. This fear is pretty bad too, because it messes with our identity. This fear can affect how we see ourselves. You know, it's interesting. A lot of what can happen in today's society is a comparison with others. I will not like that person. I want to be like that person. And that often leads to us often developing a sense of inferiority and being quite timid about who we are. But the scripture, 2 Timothy 1 verse 6, tells us that God hasn't given us that. He's given us love, power, and a sound mind. Interesting that he uses those three things to counteract fear. You see, because love speaks of acceptance. God accepts us for who we are. Power speaks of strength, being able to be comfortable in who you are. And a sound mind means clear thinking. This type of fear, this timidity, aims to strip all of those things from you. It aims to make you feel like you don't fit in. It aims to weaken you and make you feel feeble about being who you're called to be. And it also aims to mess with your thinking so you forget who you actually are. So why is it important to study fear? Well, fear hinders us, and it's something that Jesus and the Bible throughout, God spent a lot of time telling people, do not be afraid. It's a common emotion that we see in humans, but it's an emotion that, if it's one of the fears that we want to avoid, can really hinder us. So fear can be debilitating. It can prevent our basic functioning skills. You know, we talk about being frozen with fear, or sort of a deer caught in headlights, where you're just stuck. And this can happen in our walk and our pursuit of Christ. So understanding what fear is, understanding the different types of fear, what we should be pursuing and what we should be avoiding is really important. And in our next video, we're going to be looking at how we overcome fear. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.